Are we seeing an increase in anti-Polish sentiments across the United Kingdom, and has the number of hate crimes against British Poles gone up since Brexit? In the several decades since Poles became the largest migrant group in the UK, there have been notable cases of Polonophobic attacks, that is, racially motivated crimes against anyone of Polish origin. Many claim that Polonophobia isn't a post-Brexit issue, it's always been there, although Brexit exasperated the situation. But what do Britons have against Poles, and why have Eastern Europeans been treated unfairly by their Western counterparts? Is it because they steal their jobs and manipulate their welfare systems? Well, that's what we're here to find out. Why there's a rising anti-Polish sentiment in the UK, and how Poles have been reacting to it. Can something be a threat and an intriguing offer at the same time? Polish Plumber posters that had started circulating around Europe in 2004 would be the perfect example. In 2004, when Poland had joined the European Union, an all-too-common stereotype of Eastern European migrants started to sprout up. In conjunction with Poland gaining entry into the alliance was the EU's newfound law, the Bolkestein Directive, better known as the Services Directive. In effect, by joining the free movement and the single market, EU member nations were granted speedy processes when applying for positions in other EU member states. Free movement and the establishment of the single market for services was in everyone's best interest. Notably, Eastern European migrants, such as the Poles, made use of EU laws to travel to countries in Western Europe, predominantly the United Kingdom, France, and Germany, and seek employment. It was a quid pro quo situation. Eastern Europeans would fill labor shortages in Western Europe for less than the standard salaries. The obvious question here is, why were they offered less? To be fair, this has been a hotly debated topic. However, many employers in Western Europe offer their Eastern European employees salaries that are competitive with what could have been offered back home. Of course, this wasn't in every case, but it did make the idea of employing Eastern Europeans more attractive. For the many Poles who'd migrated towards the West, life was about to change for the better. Poland had been facing issues with political corruption for several decades following the fall of the Soviet Union. As far as the rest of Europe was concerned, countries that had once been part of the former Soviet Union were still further behind. But there was a problem. What if Poles stole work from Western Europeans? An interesting assessment was made by Philippe de Villiers, once the president of Movement of France, in 2004, when the EU proposed the idea of the Services Directive. De Villiers was amongst several politicians who were actively lobbying against the directive. Their stance was clear: Eastern Europeans would come and take away work from Western Europeans. Did de Villiers, or the several people in his corner, have an actual standing to support their cause? Well, not necessarily. The idea of migrants taking over the job market has been proposed before as well. However, the argument is always shot down when taxes are brought up. Migrants contribute towards the economy in more ways than many can imagine. In any case, that's what sprung the idea of the Polish Plumber, cheap labor entering the West from the East that threatened job security for the people of the host nation. Not many people shared de Villiers' sentiments. In fact, the Swiss Socialist Party campaigned for the Polish Plumber, and all plumbers showcasing their support for the Service Directive. Back home in Poland, the Polish plumber, Piotr Adamski, became the poster boy for Polish tourism. Poland's tourism industry capitalized on the opportunity by having Adamski model as the Polish plumber, suggesting that Western Europeans should visit the home of the iconic figure themselves. The majority of the hubbub started and ended in 2004. Eventually, the Services Directive was passed. Poland joined the European Union, and sooner rather than later, several millions of Poles migrated from their home country seeking employment elsewhere. The largest migrant population, however, found its way into Great Britain. Today, they're the largest migrant group in the nation. And that's where the issue of the Polish plumber sprung up again. This time, however, it was brought up by Leave campaigners who stated that the Polish plumber had destroyed hard-working Britons' opportunity at making a decent living. Did the Polish plumber cause Brexit? It wasn't allegations that were stealing jobs, it was allegations that Poles had manipulated the British welfare system. Remittance is one of the major reasons why Polish agencies actively help their countrymen and women seek employment elsewhere in Europe. The money that's sent back home to Poland is funneled into the Polish economy, helps pay taxes, and altogether contributes towards Poland's welfare. Of course, the trade-off would be sending Polish workers, skilled or unskilled, to work elsewhere. However, because of the lack of employment opportunities back home, it was their only option. Besides remittance in the form of sending back home a portion of their salaries, many Britons believed that Poles found a way to exploit the British welfare system. Notably, former Prime Minister David Cameron lobbied to have EU migrants off state welfare systems in the lead-up toward the referendum. This was a move greatly condemned by the Polish Express, a newspaper in the UK that focuses on Polish Britons and their everyday lives. The publication accused the former Prime Minister of feeding into negative stereotypes surrounding Poles, implying that they were lazy and only sought to take from their host countries. Ultimately, the EU agreed with Cameron to a mild cut in migrant welfare. Newly arrived EU migrants will have to spend 1 year here before being eligible for welfare payments. They won't lose child benefits at all, though these will be paid at the rates of the child's country of residence instead of UK rates, as is the case today. As you can tell, anti-Polish sentiment in the UK was growing. In fact, it had been growing since the mass migration from Eastern and Central Europe and Great Britain. But did Brexit exasperate Polonophobia? In London, ethnically motivated attacks against Poles rose from 28 incidents in 2004 to 42 in 2007. Conservative MP Daniel Kawczynski, himself of Polish descent, attributed part of the hostility to media coverage, specifically criticizing the BBC for its portrayal of Polish immigration. Complaints of anti-Polish bias also extended to the press, with the Federation of Poles in Great Britain and the Polish Embassy raising formal grievances against newspapers like the Daily Mail and the Times. It is estimated that the Polish community in Britain doubled after 2004, and by 2015, Poland had surpassed India as the largest foreign-born population in the UK. This influx sparked tensions, with anti-Polish sentiment often linked to broader immigration debates. Far-right groups like the British National Party advocated for halting immigration from Eastern Europe and even deporting Poles. Anti-Polish sentiment persisted, with several attacks and incidents reported after the UK's 2016 Brexit referendum. The increase in xenophobic bullying of Central and Eastern European children, including Poles, further underscored the challenges faced by the community during this period. In 2016, a few months after the results of the referendum were announced, media outlets reported that a Polish man in Leeds had been assaulted by a group of 20 young individuals in what the police reported was a hate crime. Following the attack, the Polish embassy said it was saddened by another assault on one of its citizens in the UK, where there have been around 30 xenophobic incidents in just a few months. A group of up to 20 teenagers confronted a 28-year-old Polish man and his friend. The Pole attempted to escape, but was chased down and punched and kicked by the group. They also hurled racist abuses at him, demanding that he go home. The man was later taken to the hospital, where he had to get stitches, although his injuries were confirmed by the police to be non-life-threatening. In light of everything that was taking place shortly before the referendum and in the years Britain formally left the European Union, did it make sense for Poles to stay? Polonophobia had been, and continues to be, a pressing matter in the United Kingdom long before the results of the Brexit referendum were read out. Did cases increase after Brexit? According to a 2016 article by the BBC, yes. However, cases existed long before then too. Notably, in 2015, Polish workers throughout the United Kingdom announced a one-day strike. The purpose was clear: demonstrate their crucial role in the lives of everyday Britons by not working for a day. The protest was organized in August of 2016, and a notable figure at the forefront was George Basinski, a Polish Briton who moved to the UK for further education. George was part of the British Poles Initiative, a group that had amassed mass support over social media.
The history of the Polish people in the United Kingdom is beautiful. Our grandfathers, they fought in Battle of Britain 75 years ago and spilled blood then. And today, we are donating blood for Britain as well.
When the idea of the one-day strike was proposed, George had a different idea of how to go about demonstrating Polish Britain's crucial role in the English economy. Over 2,300 people pledged to support the British Poles Initiative's request to use their day off to support the NHS. George read that the NHS needed 200,000 blood donors to meet its 2016 goals. Those numbers could easily be made up by the Poles living in the nation, whose numbers in 2016 had reached approximately 1 million. Many pledged to donate blood in a symbolic movement. Elsewhere in the United Kingdom, Poles believed that a 24-hour protest was more than enough to highlight the crucial role Eastern European migrants had been making to the English economy and how they'd been disregarded for far too long. Support for the protest was widespread, and its effects were well understood by English employers. Again, this was in 2015 when cases of Polonophobia had started to rise. However, come 2016 in the referendum, the Poles knew that one day of protesting wasn't enough anymore. They had to leave. One thing cannot be argued, and that would be facts. Facts such as how a 2014 study by economists at University College London found that migrants from newer EU member states such as Poland contribute £5 billion more to the British economy than they receive in welfare. However, in light of the growing negative sentiments towards Poles and reinforced stereotype, some perpetuated by the media, Poles decided to pack up and leave. But could they go back home? Admittedly, the situation in Poland has gotten better over the past couple of decades since the mass exodus after accession into the EU in 2004. But unemployment is still a massive issue, and corruption is a grave concern. Leaving Britain didn't automatically mean going back home after Brexit. No, in fact, for many Poles, it meant finding another EU member state to call home. According to Statista, Germany had the highest number of Polish citizens in EU member states, over 784,200 in 2023, which was an increase of 1.4% compared to 2022. The influx of Polish workers has supported Germany's strong export-driven economy by filling essential labor gaps, particularly in manufacturing and logistics. For example, Polish workers are vital in Germany's logistics sector, which is integral to the smooth functioning of supply chains. The availability of Polish labor also helps Germany maintain competitive production costs, contributing to its strong GDP growth. Polish workers have also helped Germany address its aging workforce problem by expanding the labor pool, contributing to tax revenues and the social security system. Their involvement in industries like manufacturing and logistics ensures that Germany remains competitive globally by maintaining efficient production and lower costs. The United Kingdom's loss is Germany's gain. What do you think?